When I started college, I was pretty apathetic to politics. I enjoyed political discussions with my friends, and I had my beliefs, but I never knew what to do to assert them. It wasn't until I joined one of the few conservative groups on my extremely liberal campus that I found my voice to stand up for my conservative values. My name is Elizabeth, and today I want to share how I went from a closet conservative to the chair of the most active conservative group on Virginia Tech's campus. After I started my first political science class at Tech, I realized that college classes were not going to be as open for discussion as my high school government class was, and that I was definitely one of the few people not buying into my professor's lectures on white privilege and government intervention. The one time that I did speak up on the importance of personal responsibility and limiting government power, my classmates literally laughed at me, and my professor completely ignored me. I felt alone. It wasn't until my second semester that I discovered other conservatives on my campus. Spring semester began and I met Lauren McHugh, the chair of our campus YAP group, and former CBLPI intern. Although it took me a long time to actually go to a meeting, I finally convinced one of my friends to come with me to our first YAP meeting. The fact that the room was filled with people who understood what it was like to be a conservative on campus and felt the same way I did was enough to motivate me to stop being quiet about my beliefs. It made me more confident in my values and opinions. I learned how to formulate strong arguments, and I had a group of people I could finally talk about current events with and not worry about having my class grade marked down. The fall semester began, and so did activism projects. Along with the countless other events we had going on, we even created our own activism project, a funeral for Halloween, after our student government tried dictating what was and was not appropriate to wear for Halloween. The funeral for Halloween was probably the best activism project we have done since I've joined the group. We set up a coffin with costumes that the SGA had considered cultural appropriation, like Pocahontas and Jasmine. Even a sombrero was considered offensive. We also wrote an obituary for Halloween and handed out candy with the obituary and the club's statement before Halloween weekend. Everyone quickly realized how ridiculous it was to try and dictate what people wore for Halloween. Even though dealing with the left on campus all of the time can be discouraging, being involved with this group made it feel more fun than annoying. We weren't victims of the left's outrageous political correctness and social justice policies. Lauren was graduating that fall semester, so her position as chairman was going to need to be filled. YAP had become a staple of my college career, and I knew I wanted the position. Lauren is someone with many accomplishments that are hard to live up to, but I wanted to give back to the group that really gave me a voice on campus when I felt like I didn't have one. Luckily, the group decided that they wanted me to lead them. In just a year, I went from a closet conservative to the chair of the most active conservative group on Virginia Tech's campus and one of the most active groups in the country. This past semester, I jumped right into the controversy by bringing Ben Shapiro to campus. We titled the event Crybabies, the Hypocrisy of Liberals in the Social Justice Movement. The event went viral 24 hours after posting it. Our group was accused of immaturity. Everyone was whining about the name, saying just because they were more liberal didn't mean they were crybabies. They were literally proving the point we were trying to make. The event even got put on blast on the campus feminist group's Facebook page, where they proceeded to fight amongst each other on how to deal with us. When it came time to hang up posters, we printed out 200, put them up in buildings all over campus, and came back the next day to every single one being torn down. This happened 7 times. The crybaby point was being proven over and over again. Joke's on them because someone from outside of the Virginia Tech community decided to support our efforts and help us get more flyers. The day of the event, I had no idea what to expect. I thought no one would show up since they kept saying they wouldn't because of the name. Over 150 people showed up. People were trying to pay others $50 to grab a seat in a room to hear Shapiro speak. This was all to hear a conservative speaker. Almost every question asked during Q&A, except for a few at the end, were conservative, even on my liberal campus. Around the same time, one of the members of my YAP group discovered a sign on campus that was titled, "Check Your Privilege," then listed qualities that made you privileged. This list included being white, male, cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied, and even your socioeconomic class. Since we were already hosting Ben Shapiro to discuss the ridiculousness of social justice projects like this one, I decided to write a short piece on how I had been diagnosed with privilege at Virginia Tech. This was only a small part of the school's larger efforts to teach white privilege to the student body. Honestly, the passive-aggressive poster removal and check your privilege sign, it's just a fraction of what you could face on your campuses. I couldn't even include some of the things that have been said to me, but it's worth it. What I have accomplished and learned would not have been possible if I did not jump into the opportunity of being involved in a group of other conservatives on my campus and always being bold with my activism. Going to conferences like this one, hosting controversial speakers, even coming up with your own controversial activism projects are all things you should do in college. Not only is it fun to push the left button, but you learn so much more when you have little support. Holding a leadership position in a group disliked by many of your peers is definitely not an easy task, but it is an amazing opportunity to discover so much about yourself. You will learn more from planning something that receives a lot of backlash than you would if every single person around you was supporting you and agrees with you. Handling criticism gracefully is something you learn, but I personally know that I have grown from the countless negative comments I receive and usually laugh at them because they're ridiculous. I never knew that hard work was privilege until someone told me just how privileged I am. Finally, I want you to know that everything you do as a conservative on most campuses is controversial because you are the minority ideology. So instead of being afraid of that controversy, have fun and be bold with it. Ronald Reagan said, when you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat. I encourage all of you to be bold on your campuses as you start your college career and make the left feel the heat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and everyone else. We will take questions now for the interns. If you have a question and you want to specifically address it to a certain girl, again, we have Andrea, the Danielles, Abby, and Elizabeth. Right now we do not have a Q&A mic, so if you will just please stand up and ask really loudly.
So Danielle, this one. Okay. Okay. So my question for you, well, actually both of you guys, because you both go to small conservative colleges. So I'm starting a chapter at my campus in the fall, and I'm transferring now from a large community college that's very liberal to now a smaller Christian college that's very conservative. So what can you recommend are some tips for getting conservative students involved in their chapters? What's a good way to draw them in and make them be less apathetic towards systems?
Lots of free food.
Come up to the podium.
No, but seriously, lots of free food. There's nothing that will draw a college student to an event more than pizza or even soda and potato chips. Be friends with someone who has a Costco membership. I'm that person. I have been invited to a lot of events and made a lot of friends because of that. But no, start out by making friends. Host a small event that people will want to come to in the fall. It's going to especially be easy. I'm vice chair of my college Republicans chapter, and we host debate watch parties. And we go and we watch the debates. And because people who are politically inclined want to see them, they're like, hey, you know what, I'll go watch it with more people where there's food. Draw them in, tell them about what you're doing, especially with Yak, it'll be really easy because you have all the promotional material, and then go from there. But you're going to have a strong group of friends that wants to help you out and will support you and empower you.
Grove City is slightly different than, I think, Patrick Henry. It's a little bit of a bigger college, and I've met a lot of people with diverse opinions. We just started a YAF chapter, and something I think we're going to use is what people at Grove City is Grover Achiever. So I think the idea, if we bring a really great speaker and show that, oh, I was involved in this, I can put this on my resume. I got to meet, Babe Buchanan because I hosted her. That could get people excited about being involved. So offer them different things like free food. I know there's a big Greek life at Grove City, so we offer them credit to help them towards their Greek life. And So we just finding different ways to encourage people to come is a really good idea. And even though it's a conservative campus, I think bringing a great speaker will really make people interested. So.
Were you guys a part of bringing Margaret Thatcher to Patrick Henry?
Okay, I can actually speak to that, yeah. So for a little bit of background, while Marco Rubio was still running for president, he was doing an interview with Michael Ferris, who's the founder of Patrick Henry College, and so he was already going to be in the area, and through some joint efforts between the Students for Rubio Club and some of the leadership of the college, we convinced him to stay an extra day and host a rally at Patrick Henry. The really sucky part of that is I had just left on break. He spoke literally over our break, so I was this close to meeting Marco Rubio, but I didn't. So yeah, it was a student-led effort. They basically got on their hands and knees and begged, and we flooded the town of Purcellville with people who wanted to hear Marco speak. Yeah.
My question is, when I was with very conservative professors, is it worth it to take a lower grade if you're outspoken about your beliefs?
So I've had almost all liberal professors, and I would say to be outspoken wisely, definitely. And I would definitely not accept a lower grade. If you feel like your professor was being biased, then you should definitely talk to the administration about it, because that's definitely not right. But that being said, I cannot recommend enough that everyone be very wise with how they're outspoken, because where I go to school, the liberals in my class are very, very outspoken, and it gets obnoxious, so I try to not be like that, but to also present a conservative opinion. So definitely, I just recommend doing everything wisely, and if a professor is biased, then definitely talk to someone.
So I actually had to ask myself that same question when I was writing a final paper this past winter. And I didn't really know, it was an online class, so I didn't really know what to expect. It was about why I didn't agree with affirmative action, and I had to use political philosophers to back my opinion. So my professor was very liberal, and I wrote the paper completely against affirmative action. He gave me 100, but with the comment, I think you actually agree with affirmative action, and then listed the reasons why I did, even though my paper went entirely against it. So it's really hard to find the balance, because I've had professors like that, and then like I said, I've had my grade marked down before because I've spoken out about conservative beliefs in class. And I've had a professor this past fall also who told me that I interpreted something that I read completely wrong, even though it was very biased and I just gave the other side. So it's hard to find the balance, and you have to be kind of wise about it, but I have taken lower grades, and honestly it hasn't really affected my overall GPA that much, and it hasn't really affected the overall grade in the class that much. So I think you should stand strong in your values, but like Andrea said, be wise about it.
Can you speak to that from a conservative perspective?
I was in, we have this class and we talk about a lot of different issues, and I think the topic was abortion. And one of the kids in the class said something like, it wasn't a good way to put forth the conservative idea. So I spoke up and I said, well, I think it would be a great idea to talk about it from how women should actually be pro-life, because it's better for women. And I did this a few other times when we were talking about homosexuality, just to make sure we were questioning how we were speaking about conservative ideas and really being the best advocate for our position. And my professor was very conservative, and a lot of people in the class were, but multiple times people came up to me after that class and were like, thank you so much for saying that. I never thought of it that way. So I think it goes on both sides. If anyway someone's saying something you disagree with, don't be afraid, don't be obnoxious, but don't be afraid to stand out and say something different, because someone might have never thought of that, and it could really change someone's opinion and how they look at things. So that's from a conservative school perspective.
I have
very liberal professor at my time at Miami, and it was a History 101 course full of just freshmen and sophomores, just basic entry level class. This professor looked like he was about 20 years old, like very young, could totally tell it was his first semester teaching. And towards the end of the semester, we had to write an essay on a book that we read, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but the topic of it was an insane slave that murdered white people in his town. Do you know the name of that? No, that wasn't it. It was something different. I can't remember. It'll come to me in a second. But we had to write an essay about how the slave was justified in going around and massacring essentially white people, not necessarily slave owners. But the way that I got to that, because I just was fuming the entire time I wrote this essay, I wrote the essay according to what he wanted, but after I turned the essay in, we had a discussion over the book in class, and I totally just like shot it down. So that was kind of how I dealt with that. So I took the higher grade, but still kind of put my opinions out there. So that's another way you can do that if you're given that opportunity.
Have any final questions? Lauren?
What is one piece of advice each of you would give to your high school selves that you wish you had looking back now?
Just because my essay was already kind of like this, I would tell myself, like I said in my essay, don't be afraid to step outside of the box. If there's like a fringe interest that you have, because politics was just kind of like a fringe interest that I had, and obviously I'm here now, like hopefully I'll work in politics after I graduate. So just take a chance with that. And another thing, you don't have to be like your parents. I wanted to put this in my essay, but for time constraints I couldn't. You don't have to like be the major that your parents are because you think you're a lot like your parents. Like it literally took me a semester to declare my major and admit to myself I wanted to be a politics major. Just like take the classes that interest you and find a thing that you're most passionate about, because in the end that's what's going to make you most successful. If you like hate yourself and you're taking like engineering courses because you think you're going to get a good job afterwards, I promise you won't be as happy as doing something that you really love. So that's my advice.
Well, the piece of advice that I would give is to be open-minded. I'm sorry if I sounded like a liberal or a communist by saying that it's a good thing to go to a liberal school, or that I was in a libertarian club, but really it's a really good piece of advice. I was just like you guys. I was very, very, very strong about my conservative views, and I still am. But even though like I'm basically called a fascist at Rutgers, sometimes like I'm considered like liberal by more conservative people, even though that's not true. So I would just really, really recommend being open-minded and don't worry about becoming liberal or something. If you discover a liberal author that you like and you want to read the book, but you're afraid of changing your political views. And it also makes you a lot more respectable on campus to show that you're like capable of understanding and eloquently disagreeing with different views. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Last question?
They all have to be.
Sorry.
I think if I could tell my high school self anything, it was something I probably knew, but just didn't really fully embrace, which is to be your best self. And by that, what I mean is don't let anyone shoot you down. You're going to go into college with dreams and passions, and oh my goodness, this sounds so negative, and I hope you all still want to go to school, to college at the end of this, but like, college, it's like going into a pressure cooker. Like, literally, you enter these next 4 years of your life, and it is hard, and it is stressful, and if you don't break down crying at least once a semester, you probably have a really good therapist. But honestly, it's one of the greatest things you'll ever do. It gives you the opportunity in a unique environment to expand your mind and to learn and to come to terms with who you are. But I think it's really, really easy to lose sight of yourself while you're trying to find yourself. Because I think a lot of times we already know who we are. We know what we want to do. And we get to college and we hear all these new ideas and thoughts and meet these new people and we think, oh my goodness, I'm not who I thought I was. Oftentimes you are. You just have to come to terms with that. But don't lose your passion and do everything that you want to do and have wanted to do, but do it in the best way that you can so that you can be your best self for those 4 years and beyond.
you all are probably a little confused because all of us have had very different experiences in colleges and have all said like the great things of why we loved our experience. So my best advice to you is like, don't stress out about where you go to college because it's really about making the best experience. I did not want to go to Grove City. My parents wanted me to go there because my brother had went there. I'm very independent. I was like, I'm going to do my own thing. But because of many different circumstances, I ended up going. And then what really, I found a great group of friends who really challenged me, who weren't cookie cutter, who would I'd have fun with, but also would challenge me. So I found people and found ways to make the best of my experience, and I love it now. So wherever you go, if you're a little nervous about one aspect or another, you're trying to put together all what we've said, don't feel stressed. It's about what you make of college. So that's my advice.
So I had a little bit of a different high school experience. I started at a very conservative high school, and then after my freshman year I moved to Lexington, Virginia, which has a university right in the middle of it on Washington and Lee, which they had this case a while back about removing the Confederate flag from Robert E. Lee's grave, and they actually won. But in high school, after I moved, my beliefs were kind of questioned, and I didn't have any confidence in myself when I went into college about like being a conservative. My friends in high school, they were more conservative but more moderate and kind of like shot me down a lot. And just keep your confidence. Don't worry about them, because now I'm in college and I go against literally 99% of my classmates, and it's great, and I don't worry about it anymore because I had to grow a thick skin early on. But when I started college, I didn't have any confidence because of that, and I think you should just keep that.
All right, last question.
If you had one book to recommend to people here that maybe helped you define some of your conservative values, or that you think would be helpful for the girls to read before going into college, what would that be?
Okay, the best book that I've read, it's a quick, easy read. You might have to read it twice because some of the language can be a little bit difficult in it. It's about 70 pages. The Law by Frederick Bastiat. That's like the end-all, be-all, like, you can read Hayek and stuff like that, and it's very drawn out. The law is very condensed. That's like the #1 book that I recommend to all of you guys.
If I had to recommend one, it would be God and Man at Yale by William F. Buckley Jr., which all of my fellow interns know that I'm like obsessed with William F. Buckley Jr. It's a really good book. If you're going to a liberal campus, it'll help strengthen your views about like secularization of education and why it's wrong. And so just anything by William F. Buckley Jr.
I'm going to recommend a book that I haven't even finished, but it's Margaret Thatcher's autobiography. The book is literally huge, and you'll get like, I can't read this, but what I've done through high school and through college, I've just read a little bit at a time, and every few pages I read, she says something inspirational that reignites my passion to be like a great conservative women leader. So like, I would just have that book with you always, and whenever you have a chance, read a few pages, and she's really inspiring.
So I would have never thought to read this book, but read Brave New World because it's like a dystopian novel. And my senior English class, I had to read it, and it was probably the best book that I've ever read, and it really strengthened my conservative beliefs. And that senior year was kind of when I realized that I was a lot more conservative than my classmates. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
For a specific book, I'd probably say Anthem by Ayn Rand, for kind of the same reason Elizabeth was saying read Brave New World, which I'm ashamed to say I haven't actually read yet. But Anthem was something I read my freshman year of high school, and it really shaped my, okay, this is why we need conservatism and not the other side. But beyond that, read some fiction, because this is probably your last opportunity to actually have any time to read. I miss reading books a lot.
Thank you so much, girls. Now we're gonna take a photo outside. If you can all take your stuff with you. But before you grab your stuff, please fill out and leave behind the feedback form. We'll do a drawing from this, and we'll pick one of you to win a free signed book. So please do leave that